What is up? What it is, Army? We made it. We made it onto the news. We made it onto a CBC article about Subway Surfers and Family Guy content. Our video Parasocial Agency was featured, and I am going to talk about the article and particularly one of the responses and just give some quick fireback hot takes as to why I think this person is wrong, and I still think, the Parasocial Agency is a good take. Starting off, I want to thank Jackson Weaver, awesome journalist at CBC, and Chris for hooking us up. I definitely recommend the article. Super cool that people are paying attention to trends like this. We're going to be responding to Betsy Grabe, a researcher of cognitive processes and principal investigator at Indiana University's Observatory on Social Media. She says, sludge content is unlikely to hypnotize anyone, and points to a field of study called audiovisual redundancy. She says that whenever sound and video compete for humans' attention, video wins. There's 2 points in there. One is that the content hypnotizes people, and 2, that there is a competition between video and audio that is somehow happening in this type of content. Let's talk about the second one first. There are generally 2 videos. You have one video with no sound, which is the gameplay. Then you have a second video with sound, which is the person talking. In this, there's not like audio separated and then someone only processing video, like looking at someone lip syncing and looking at gameplay and only focusing on that. And, if we really want to get into like informational hierarchies and what gets broken down, the video with audio is going to be ranked higher because there's an added audio component versus the other stuff. And all of this is like not in a vacuum. We're thinking of a 3-minute time someone can watch one of these things. Obviously, while they might focus on the gameplay for aspects of it, they are also going to randomly zone out and be like, oh, that's dumb, and look at Andrew Tate. It's not like someone's locked in on one thing the whole time. The whole premise here is that people's attention is jittering between a lot of sources, hence dual screening. They can go back and forth, and they like to get a little bit of Tate, take a break from Tate, look back at the other thing. There's, time is the other variable that you're missing in this. To hop back onto the first point of hypnosis, I think anytime academia tries to get into hypnosis, we get into, arguments about what the state actually means. Let's change the term hypnosis to altered mental states or like altered perceptual states. And let's talk about the idea of when you watch something for upwards of, an hour, you're scrolling on a feed. Many people personally report that they enter kind of a fugue state of sorts, that they'll forget what they were even looking at. They can't remember 3 videos up. They'll be like, where did all that time go? Or, sometimes they'll be like, oh, I should stop. They get off the app, then they immediately hop back on and they're like, I wanted to get off Instagram. Why am I clicking on it again? All of this to me suggests that, long-term consumption for long periods of time can put people in a state where they are just taking in tons of information, and it's clearly not like a hyperactive engagement. Obviously sometimes they'll comment, so it can burgeon into active engagement, but that altered state to me is what we're getting at when we talk about highway hypnosis, which is like this constant kind of influx of media where, they're no longer like executively processing and being like, I am doing this task, I am brushing my teeth, I'm doing blank, blank, and blank. The point saying it doesn't hypnotize anyone, I just give the rebuttal of like, okay, how do you define hypnosis? Obviously, social media is putting people in a type of state. I think this content is particularly good at getting people to zone out also. Might not be hypnosis, but it is definitely something other than an active processing state. Then we got, she doesn't believe sludge content, influencer diatribes will seep into anyone's unconscious. Instead, they'll just ignore them. Go to the comment sections. They're not just ignoring them, they're talking about them. And seeping into the unconscious, like again, this is something in academia where it's like bring up the unconscious, and generally it's all just gonna get tossed into the Freud was wrong crate. I'm not gonna argue in that frame, but to think they're not hearing what Tate is saying when there's captions on screen and they're responding to it in comments and these people are getting like 10 times more popular is, I think, foolish. I don't think they're just ignoring it. Then we get to, so would you draw eyeballs putting some visual candy to your talking head? Sure, I buy that. That is true. You get more views. Then she said, would your message get across more effectively? No. And we know money is to be made by eyeballs, right? So it's true, yeah, money is to be made by eyeballs, but like generally these people aren't getting paid by TikTok creator funds. They're getting paid by someone seeing Tate, understanding he's offering a particular thing, and then going to Hustlers University to buy it. Hence, it needs to process to some degree for the views to actually convert to money. But, academics and researchers don't really do any of this work. They haven't made any of these things. They don't understand what Tate is trying to accomplish, or what anyone who makes this type of content is trying to accomplish, because they're, researching from a lens of like not understanding people who really do it. But hopping back, we have, would the message get across more effectively? Now, how are we defining effectively here? To me, most of these messages are about how many times you hear them. How many times have you seen Tate before he starts to register in your mind as a brand or an entity worth taking seriously? If we think about the For You page as a competition for people to get on the For You page with independent slices of content where following doesn't matter as much like other platforms, ultimately, all that matters is making hyper-engaging content that sticks and increases watch time. That is what this is aiming to do. It's trying to get as many chances, as many shots on goal to go viral on the For You page. And by proxy, you increase someone's likelihood of being in front of you, which is Tate. Effectiveness, to me, is how many times am I going to hear Tate? Which, if that increases by any metric in like an overarching content strategy, that is where the effectiveness is drawn. Now, would Tate alone and then Tate with an added visual, I think that's potentially an argument she's making where it's like Tate alone is more effective because in this other thing, you're only focusing on that and the other thing's not as likely, which I think we get kind of complex here, but I would argue people are not engaging in critical dialogues here. They're hearing sound bites, they're hearing snippets, and when they look at the Subway Surfers content and they're distracted by that, and then for a moment, they hear Tate say some really snappy soundbite and they focus up on him, that can make it more effective because it's, they're staying to hear that in the first place. Just Tate talking oftentimes is like, it's not going to hit. He's got a miss ratio. Not every take he has is good. The added thing increases the likelihood that someone's going to even be there for, what's it called? Like the dining room effect when someone says your name and all of a sudden you're snapped out of it. One could imagine when Tate says something really crazy and you snap out of it and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. And ultimately, this is just foolish because we could just look at the comments. We can look at Tate fans and talk to them and talk about how they found him and what initially got them hooked. It's like, Last, we have, what is risky, she said, is letting the trend proliferate without researchers or those watching aware it even exists or how it affects them. I think this point is saying that it's good that we're bringing awareness to this. Letting the trend proliferate is like, what? You want social media to clamp down on this type of content? It's risky if it's proliferated, or it's risky that researchers or those watching know it exists or how it affects them. Well, I think you're denying it affects them. First off, that's kind of what at least your quotes insinuate. And then on the other half, we have being aware of what it exists. It's like, okay, I think we can agree that it's good. People are more conscious of it. It just depends on what the end game is. But I don't know. I thought it was fun to respond. And ultimately, I think anyone talking about this kind of stuff, it's exciting. It's good to know people are critically engaging with media. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. And let me know what you think of, academia's response to our video. Anyways, it is what it is. Have a good next upcoming week.